How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another episode here on Let's Build Twitter. As always, I'm Ethan, or Unknown Coder, your favorite underqualified senior software engineer. As always, if you guys don't want access to a private repository, there's a link in the description down below that'll walk you through exactly how to gain access to that. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into what we're working on today. Today, we're going to go ahead and continue working on messages. Specifically, we're going to work on getting messages to be able to send by hitting this button down here. Now, this episode may be a long one and maybe a short one. I'm just going to go ahead and record and kind of see where we go. And then I kind of have a planned cutoff point. And if it's going to be a little bit shorter, I'll continue all the way through the planned cutoff point. Otherwise, if we are pretty long, we'll go ahead and cut it off there. But by the end of the day, I at least want to go ahead and get messages sent. It's going to be a little bit complicated. It's going to be a little bit gross, but we're going to go ahead and get it working. And it's going to be gross because of some roadblocks that I ran into that I can discuss a little bit later on. So that being said, let's go ahead and get to work and hop into the code. Today, we're going to go ahead and start out on our backend. We just have two very small changes. We're going to go ahead and come down to where we have our local date time timestamp. Now, for whatever reason, Jackson doesn't really love parsing these and creating these very well. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add it at date time format if I could type. And in here, we're just going to say pattern is equal to, and we're going to say year dash month dash day space hour colon minute colon second. Okay, and then we also have a create timestamp inside of our message as well. So let's hop into message, and then inside of message, let's come down to whenever we have sent at. Here, sent at is also a local date time. So once again, we'll say at date time format. Go ahead and do this. We'll say pattern is equal to year month day. And we'll say hour colon minute colon second, and that is good to go. So that's all we want to do in the back end. Let's go ahead and hop into the front end. We have a couple of small utility things to do first, and we're going to go ahead and set it up to be able to send messages. So let's hop in the front end. Okay, so in the front end, we're going to go ahead and start out inside of our app.js. And this is because last episode we saw that we were having a hard time refreshing whenever a message came through. And this is because we weren't actually loading in the conversations, or we loaded in the conversations and then they weren't actually seen, and then it was saying, oh, there's no conversation, so let's go ahead and not work basically. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and grab the conversation. So we're going to say const conversations is equal to use selector, maybe. We're going to watch for them to be loaded basically. So state root states, and then we're going to go ahead and bring in state.message.conversations like so. And then once those conversations are loaded, we're just going to go ahead and pass it in here and put in conversation. So we won't reconnect to our WebSocket because it's checking for not connected, but we need the app to reload. That way it at least reloads use WebSocket. And then whenever it reloads use WebSocket, it'll actually have the conversation and everything should work whenever we receive a new message. That was that bug fixed. Now we need to go ahead and hop into our global interfaces and make some changes. And these are gonna be pretty big changes because whenever we're trying to send a message, so the problem that I ran into with creating a message is those timestamps. It seems like Java and Spring Boot can kind of parse them whenever it's coming in through a JSON body inside of the @request mapping. But whenever you're trying to send it through a string and then the Jackson object mapper is trying to parse it, it doesn't like that and it just breaks. So basically we need to go ahead and make special interfaces for that specific JSON object to get rid of all of those date times and return just nothing basically for those date times, and then they can actually parse it. So that's why this episode is kind of gross and ugly. But with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into global interfaces, stop yapping, get to work here. So on global interfaces, I'm just going to go ahead and go down to the bottom here. At the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and say export interface, and I'm just going to go ahead and call this create message user. So I'm going to basically have most of the important things from the user. So like user ID is important. We will have our first name, which is a string. We'll have our last name, which is a string. We'll have our email, which is a string. We'll have username, which is a string. We will have bio, which is a string. We'll have nickname. So we have most of the important things. If we need more information a little bit later on, we can grab it. But the reason why we're at least passing all this information instead of just like user ID is because we're going to want as much information whenever we get the message back as possible. And on Java, if you don't pass back all the user info, you're not going to get all the info back. So that's that one. And then we also need to export interface and then create message DTO. And this one is pretty gross, but we're going to get through it. So we'll have our message type. For whatever reason, I couldn't get the message type of message action to work properly. So I'm just going to put this as a string and we'll know that we passed the right thing. We're going to go ahead and send by, and this will be a create, message user. Like so, and then we'll have our conversation. So conversation also needs to be changed because conversation has users inside of it that has that timestamp, and it has messages inside of it that has a timestamp, and then messages inside this conversation have conversations. So it's kind of messy, but let's go ahead and get into it. Conversation ID will be a number. We're gonna have conversation users, which is gonna be a create message user. We're gonna have a conversation picture, maybe, question mark, and then this is going to be a string. We're going to have a conversation name, question mark, which is a string. We'll have a conversation message. So here we're not going to just use our create message because we need it to be slightly different as well. So message type will be a string. Once again, we're going to have sent by, which is going to be a create message user. That way we don't have that create timestamp. Our conversation is just going to have a conversation ID, which will be a number. I don't remember. I think we needed the conversation users inside of actually creating the message. We don't necessarily need it inside of like the conversation. So I think this is fine. We'll keep it as is. We'll have message text, which is going to be a string, and we will have message image, which is a string or null. And then finally, after conversation, we have the text, which is a string, and then we have the GIF URL, which is a string. So this part wasn't the bad part. The bad part's going to be mapping our message to this. So that's not going to be very fun. Before we get to that point, let's go ahead and go to the message slice and set up sending a message. That way we can go ahead and get this thing sent. Let's go into our message slice. Inside of our message slice, let's go ahead and inside of our GIF URL, we're actually going to go ahead and set the string or no. This is important for whenever we go ahead and set up our set up the send function here. Here for GIF, we're going to go ahead and set this to null. We're going to have to make some changes inside of our code to accommodate this, and we'll kind of go through those cascading changes in a little bit. And then finally, let's go ahead and hop down here and create our send message async thunk. We'll go ahead and say export const, and then send message is equal to create async thunk, maybe. And then here, we're going to go ahead and pass message slash send. We're going to go ahead and say async, and inside async, we're going to put payload. And this payload is going to be a send message payload, which I just straight up didn't add in here. So I need to go ahead and go back and grab that really quick. I'll grab it, and then we'll have a thunk API. So let me go ahead and grab this send message payload that I just skipped over. So here under our open conversation payload, we'll have an interface. We'll say send message payload, and inside of our send message payload, we'll have message payload, which is a create message DTO. Go ahead and bring that in. We'll also go ahead and have an image, an image, which will be a file or null. And finally, we'll have a token of string. So the fact that we only have one request for everything, and some of them might include images and some of them might, that's kind of what caused all this issue. But I kind of figured out a way to do it. That way we don't have to make two requests like our post, because that was kind of annoying. So now let's go ahead and go into our async thunk. First, we're going to say let data is equal to new form, data, like so. Go ahead and create a form data object. We're going to go ahead and say data.append. And then inside data.append, we're going to go ahead and say message, payload is JSON.stringify. We're going to go ahead and say payload.message payload. So we're going to go ahead and add in the data. Then we're going to go ahead and say if our payload.image is not equal to null. So if we have an image, we're going to go ahead and say data.append. And then this is going to be image, and then we'll have payload.image, and then this part is yucky, but it works. Then we're going to say data.append, and this is going to be image. Again, you have to pass the image, it's not optional, and it's looking for like a blob. So we're going to go ahead and say new blob. It's going to be empty, And then we're going to go ahead and say type is file. I don't know if type file's correct here, but it didn't complain and it lets me send images, so I'm not that concerned about it. Finally, we're going to go and say let config equal to an object, and method will be a post. Whoops, if I could type, that'd be cool. Method will be post. URL will be http:// localhost 8000/ and then this will be message / like so. Then we're going to have, I don't know why that was weird, headers. Our headers will have authorization. So here we'll have our backticks, bare space, and then $ curly brace, payload dot, and then token. And then we're also going to go ahead and have a content dash type. Here we're just going to say multi part / and then form dash data. And then finally we're going to go ahead and pass in our data. There's our config. Now I'm going to go and say let res equal to await, and then Axios maybe dot, or Axios config, go and pass that in there. And then finally we're going to go ahead and cheat a little bit. We're just going to go ahead and call thunk API dot dispatch. We're just going to go ahead and dispatch received message, and we're going to go ahead and pass in the res.data, and then we're going to go ahead and just use the received message thing that we already have set up. It'll make our lives a little bit easier. Return data. If we want to, we could go back and kind of fix it up so that there's at least like a rejected and pending, but I'm not that concerned about it, and this seems to work. So again, I'm not as concerned about it, and we already have logic in place, so I'm not going to rewrite that logic. So that was kind of the easy part of this. Now we just need to do a couple more things inside here. So let's go down to our update GIF URL, and we need to make it so it actually can pass in a null. So here this is going to be string or null, and we also have one more bug inside of, I believe it's received message maybe. So down here, instead of this saying like conversation and conversation whatever, this should be state.conversation. We need to actually check for the conversation stored in the states rather than the conversation we have. So that was another problem that we were running into. I don't remember what this one was actually doing. It wasn't writing it properly, I think, or it was opening up the conversation we didn't want it to. So that was that issue. So those two issues are fixed. Now we need to go through like all of our cascading changes to make it so that the changes I made inside of here don't break everything. So first off, we need to go into our message image. Inside of our message image, the issue here is that now we made this message GIF able to be null. So we're gonna go down to where we have an if message GIF equal to null. So here, instead of message GIF being this, we're gonna say if message GIF is equal to null and save that. And then we also need to go ahead and come down here. We need to check for message GIF. So we're also gonna go ahead and say message GIF not equal to null and this, and then that'll go ahead and pass in that message GIF, and this should be fine now. We should be able to still add in message GIFs and everything. Before we actually make sure this is still working, I think we might still need to go ahead and update our create message bar, because there's going to be a couple issues in there as well. So let's go ahead and hop into our create message bar and get that fixed. So inside of our create message bar, this is kind of going to be the bulk of where all the work is. So before we do anything, I'm going to go up here at the top, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in logged in. So const logged in. I'm also going to bring in token is equal to use selector, and this will be state root state, and go ahead and pass in state.user. I'm also going to go ahead and get our current conversation. So const conversation is equal to use selector, and then this is going to be once again state root state, and then this will be state.conversation. That looks good. And I don't know, this should be message.conversation. That looks better. And then we need to come down here a little ways, and I went a little bit too far. So here, instead of message GIF not equal to an empty string, this should be message GIF not equal to null. And then let me just double check we don't have anywhere else where message GIF is equal to an empty string. So here, this should be message GIF equal to null as well. And then there might be another one down here. So message GIF not equal to null. And I think that's everything for that. I just wanted to make sure all of these are working so we can go ahead and hop in and test to make sure we can still add GIFs and stuff. So let's hop into the front end and just double check that really quick before we get too far. So let's go ahead and refresh. Everything's loading, so that's a good sign. If we go into messages, I thought we had a message, but I forgot we restarted. So let's go ahead and create a conversation. You didn't see that, but I just went in the Postman and create a conversation. We have a conversation. Now let's see if our GIFs want to load. For some reason, sometimes Tenor is really slow. I should probably have it be like a specific size until all of them load or something, but let's give it a second here. Okay, let's go ahead and chill out. Let's go ahead and grab this. And it looks like it is fine. Everything's good. That's strange. It's because we didn't update the dispatch. Let's go ahead and fix the dispatch really quick. Let's scroll down to here. So dispatch update GIF should actually be null now, and that's good to go. So there we go. That's fine. Now we can get into the thick of it here. Depending on how long this takes and any debugging, I might go deeper in this episode and get some more work done. Or if it takes a while and it takes some debugging, we might not get as far. We're still going to get done, but we might not get any more work done outside of this. We're going to go ahead and say const handle send message is equal to an E, and then it's going to be react.mouse event on an HTML div element. And then we're going to go ahead and do one of these. So now we're going to go ahead and start up as an e.stop propagation, because whenever you click on it, it can do some other stuff, primarily try to open up the text, and we don't want that. We're going to go ahead and say const send is equal to, and then send active. We're going to go ahead and check to see if we are able to send it. So then we're going to go ahead and check if send, and we're logged in, which we should be at this point, so that shouldn't be an issue. And we're going to check for a token. Token, and we're going to check for a conversation. So the thing is, since this is wrapped in a div and it's not a button, we can't disable it. I probably could have wrapped it in a button, but I'm too lazy. So this is how we're going to do this. So now we need to go through basically and map our information into those special interfaces we just created. So we're going to go ahead and say const sendby is a create message GTO. And here we're going to go ahead and say user ID, and this will be logged in.user ID. We're going to go ahead and let me fix this. We're going to go ahead and say first name is logged in.first name. I wanted to find a way to basically make it so that I can include everything but the timestamp, but I couldn't figure out how to do that. There's probably a way to do it, and smart people probably know, but it is what it is. Last name will be logged in.last name. We'll have our email, which will be logged in.email. We'll have our username, which is logged in.username. And finally, we'll have our bio, which is logged in.bio, and nickname, which is logged in.nickname. So this one isn't too bad, and I already screwed something up. So do I need to import this? No. User ID, logged in.user ID. Let me go ahead and check what's going on with this. So it should be create message user. My bad. So this should be create message user. That's why it's mad. Create message user. Go ahead and import that. There we have it. So that's kind of the easy part. Next, let's go ahead and create the create message convo. This one is going to get a little bit messy, and let's make sure we actually are in the right area. So const create message convo. In here, let me make sure I spell create right. In here, we'll have our conversation ID, which is going to be conversation.conversation ID. We're going to go ahead and have conversation users. Here, conversation.conversation users.map. We're going to map a user. And this is what I'm talking about. It's really gross. Return, and then user ID will be user.user ID. We'll have our first name, which is user.first name. We'll have our last name, which is user.last name. We'll have our email, which is user.email. We'll have our username, which is user.username. We'll have our bio, which is user.bio, and we'll have our nickname, which is user.nickname. I probably could have just broken all these out inside of like a const or something, but it is what it is. Then after this, we need to continue. We'll have our conversation picture, which would be conversation conversation picture. We'll have our conversation, if I could type, that'd be cool. Name, which will be conversation name. And then we'll have our conversation message, which is going to be conversation message map. And we need to map each message once again to get rid of all those timestamps so it doesn't break our backend. So once again, we're going to go ahead and return. And then inside this return, we're going to have a message type of message type. We'll have our sent by, which once again, we need to go through user ID message.sent by user ID. We'll have our first name, which is message.sent by first name. We'll have last name, which is message.sent by last name. We'll have our email, which is message.sent by email. We'll have our username, which is message.sent by username. We'll have our bio, which is message.sent by bio. Finally, we'll have nickname, which is message.sent by nickname. And then after our message, when you come all the way down here, actually still inside the message after sent by, we need to go ahead and say message text, and this is going to be message. We almost forgot about this text. We also need message image, which is message image. And the thing that was getting me is that this message here is expected to be like a quote unquote regular message, but the message that we send inside Postman is a message DTL or create message DTL. So these need to be different. So that's also fun, but I can't just put in a regular message here because it has the sent by users, which has the create timestamp. Same thing with the regular message, also has the create timestamp or sent by or sent at, I'm sorry. So we have to kind of juggle all of that stuff and work around all that. So now that that's done, we can go ahead and come down here, which I believe is into create convo. And then we can go ahead and say const message payload. And this is going to go ahead and be a create message DTO, like so. And then in here, we'll have message type. For this one, it'll be a message. Eventually, we'll set it up so that it's not just message in other places, because that's where it'll be like inside the message page where you'll actually be able to update the name and whatnot. We'll have sent by, which will be just sent by. We'll have conversation, which is a create message convo. And then we'll have text, which will be message content. And finally, we'll have GIF URL, which will be message GIF, which can be null. And then what did I screw up here? So this is what I was worried about. Let me go ahead and check the global interfaces once again. I might have typoed sent by. Let me double check that. Nope, it is definitely sent by. I typoed this guy. Let's go ahead and make that sent by. There we go, that's better. And then let's see what's going on. Create message combo. I'm guessing, I don't think I typoed. I'm guessing I messed something up. So let's just try to see if I typoed, but I'm assuming I messed something up inside of the interface. So this part's going to be a pain in the backside. Let me double check this create convo and see what I'm missing out of here. So the problem is that I accidentally put the text and the GIF URL inside of the conversation rather than outside of the conversation. So let's go ahead and fix that and save. And let's go back into our create messages and hopefully it's done. Let's see if it's still complaining. So it's still mad at conversation. I'm not sure why. GIF URL can be a string or null. So that'll fix that part. Let's go and try to figure out what's wrong with the other part. So that fixed that. No, something's wrong with conversation. Let's go ahead and front end and see if it gives us any hints. Okay, it's definitely mad at conversation. Conversation ID, conversation users, conversation pick, stringer undefined, types of property, conversation users are incompatible. I'm not sure what I typoed, but somewhere I have a really nasty typo. So just to go over this again, let's go ahead and take a look at the global interfaces. Create message user has user ID, first name, last name, email, username, name, bio, nickname, and then create message DTO has our message type, create message user, conversation with conversation ID, conversation users, conversation picture, conversation name. And then here, this is not what I pasted in unless I'm going crazy. I think I did forget this array part, but I don't know if that was the issue. I don't remember writing that array part. Yeah, I did. I'm just going crazy. But we have a conversation messages, array of message type, blah, 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 blah. And I might have straight up forgotten the array whenever I was typing it. And that could have been the actual issue instead of with the other stuff in conversation. That fixed that. And then if we go back into our create messages, it's basically the same. We still have our create conversation. We also have our sent by. So now let's go ahead and reset up that create message DTO that we were working on. We'll go ahead and say const message payload once again. This will be a create message DTO. And then here we'll say message type is message. We'll go ahead and say sent by. We'll say conversation is create message convo. We'll go ahead and say text is message, message content once again. And we'll say GIF, maybe URL. This is message GIF. If I could type, that'd be cool. Finally, we got that guy working. Then we're gonna go ahead and dispatch. And then we'll go ahead and dispatch send message. And then here we'll go ahead and pass in the message payload. We'll pass in the image, which will be message image. We'll pass in token like so. And then I have this outside of the curly braces. I don't want it outside the curly braces. We only want this to happen if it actually works. So we're gonna go ahead and say if our text area ref and text area ref dot current. If that's the case, text area maybe ref dot current dot value will equal to an empty string. We'll go ahead and say set message content to an empty string. We'll go ahead and say set message image to null, and we'll say dispatch, and we'll dispatch update GIF URL and also set that to null. So basically reset everything here. And of course this is going to be broken. Why not? We've had such good luck today, you know. I don't know why it said dispatch event. Let's go and fix that. Maybe we don't have a dispatch set up. Pretty sure we do. Yeah, I don't know why I call it dispatch event, but it is what it is. So now we're going to come down here and we want to recalculate height on a few more things. We want to recalculate height when the message content changes, when the message, when the message image changes. I cannot type now. And when the message GIF changes. And then finally, there's just a couple more things that we need to deal with. So primarily already dealt with adding in the GIFs and everything. So now we need to come down here to where we actually click on this guy. So if we come down here to the send message, we're going to go ahead and just pass it and on click equal to, and then this is going to be handle send message. And with the way the episode went today, which I expected it to be a little bit funky just because of how much work we had to do, fingers crossed things actually want to work. Otherwise I'm going to stop recording and pick it up later because I'm running out of time this morning. It's taken so long. So let's hop into the front end and just pray that this works at this point. Let's go ahead and refresh. And if we actually go into dbeaver and refresh the application, we should see that we don't have any messages. So I just want to prove that if they do show up, that it's working. And there's still a little bit of work we need to do to make everything look polished. And we'll pick that up next episode. If we go into messages, we don't have any messages. And if we go inside of images, we don't have any images. So that's good to go. Let's go ahead and back into the front end. Let's give it a refresh just to give ourselves a best chance here. Go into messages, Rick. So let's go ahead and just try to send a message without, a image. So this is kind of like our first test. If we send it, the prevent default or the stop propagation didn't work for some reason. So we need to look into that. But you can see message without an image. Let's go into dbeaver and see if it actually showed up. So if we go ahead and refresh our messages, that's images, refresh message. You can see we have our message, doesn't have an image. Now if we go ahead and we need to check in on that stop propagation, but test with an image. We can go ahead and click on this guy, click on an image, click on this guy, click open. That looks okay. Fingers crossed. Test with an image. It popped up. it is actually resizing okay right now, but we can do a little bit better to make it look nicer. Let's go ahead and check the database, make sure everything's in there. So once again, let's go ahead and refresh our messages. So you can see we have an image. If we go into our images and go into data and refresh images, we have our image. Now the last one is, let's go ahead and test with a GIF. So go ahead and say test with a GIF. Go ahead and click on this guy, grab our GIF, let it load for a sec here. I don't know why it's being so slow. Yeah, I'm confused. So let's go ahead and grab this. Go ahead and send. Test with a GIF sent. Let's go ahead and just check our database really quick. So we refresh our images. You can see we have an image. Go ahead and go into our messages and refresh our message. I don't know why it's going up. We need to investigate what's going on with this. It's like making multiple messages or something. It's kind of strange, but I'm not that concerned about this point. I think that's going to go ahead and do it, y'all. We got messages sending. Next episode, we're going to go ahead and get it so this scrolls nicely. And also whenever this goes up and down, everything works. And we also need to go ahead and see what's going on with the stop propagation. Let me actually look at that really quick. So for some reason, our stop propagation, I probably did stop prevent default or something instead of stop propagation. No, I did do stop propagation. I'm not sure why it's not stopping. I'll have to look into that. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. This probably hasn't been long from the episode standpoint, but I've been recording for almost an hour because of the debugging. So if you guys did enjoy, if you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. Everything helps out here in the YouTube algorithm. If you guys do want to see where we started from absolute scratch to get to the point we are now, there's a playlist that I'll go ahead and link in the end video card as well. So as guys, hope you have a great day. This has been Elon Uncoder, and I'll see you in the next video.